This is the Benefits Buzz Podcast, your weekly pulse on what's happening in the world of employee benefits. Brought to you by your friends at WEX, who believe in simplifying benefits for everyone. Now listen up and let's get buzzed! Hey everyone, it's another episode of Benefits Buzz. Welcome. I'm your co-host, Eric Piella, and I'm joined in this episode by my co-host, Hayden Goethe. Hayden, what's up, my friend?
Not much. Just excited to talk some trends on this most trendy of benefits podcasts out there.
This is uber trendy. We're so trendy right now talking benefits trends. This is great. And I know that you've been waiting for this episode because you've been heavily involved up to your eyeballs in digging through trend data, which we're gonna. You've done all the dirty work. Like you're in the background taking what we like to say this meaningless data and turning it into meaningful information. And that's one of the questions we always get. What are other HR pros doing? What are other employers doing when it comes to benefits? And so the cool thing about this episode is that, we have hundreds of partners we have hundreds of thousands of employers who are on the WEX platform, which means we have this giant pool of beautiful data. And we've finally taken the opportunity to look through, sift through, and pull out some really powerful trends.
I got to stop you quick though, Eric. Like I may have done some dirty work, but I'm definitely not the only hero in this one. So
that's fair. There are a bunch of superheroes.
Yeah,
and one of them is our guest on the show. Great transition, Hayden. We have Matt Dallahan. He is our Vice President of Product Portfolio Management Benefits at WEX. Matt, welcome back to the Benefits Buzz podcast. You're a return guest.
It's great to be here. I always look forward to being on Benefits Buzz.
Well, we love to have you on here. I'm guessing you were super excited to see that we actually talk about these benefits trends, which I know you're passionate about. I can't wait to dive in. So let's just do so, Matt, because right at the forefront, right, when we have all this rich data, we want to make sure we start to look at what's happening in our industry. How do we shape our products? How are employers using things? And that really will arm our listeners to really think about what they're offering and the way in which they communicate that to their employees. So let's talk about data. Data has always been important, but why now? And why does it mean even really more today when employers are choosing benefits?
Sure. So data is everywhere, right? It's our ability to collect information about people, about what they're doing online, digitally has never been higher. And so why now? I think that's a big part of it. It's just the massive proliferation of information out there, whether it's social media, whether it's buying habits, whether it's, you name it. And then technology. The explosion of AI and the new tools we have at our disposal to really, unlock trends within that data is really why now. And so those two things have really kind of come together. The challenge for us is to say, all right, how do we learn from what's going on elsewhere in the world about how data is being used and apply it to our business, and to do it in a thoughtful way, right? You guys know we live at the intersection of financial services and healthcare, and with that, we get twice the amount of regulation. That's what I always like to say. But I think importantly with benefits in healthcare, being sensitive in terms of how you use information that you have and doing that in a compliant fashion is really important. But where we see opportunities, certainly in how we engage with consumers, right? I think the single biggest challenge that we face across this industry is, how do we engage consumers in meaningful ways? How do we help people make better decisions? You guys know, we've talked about this before. Just this is a complex stuff for individuals to figure out. And if we can use the data that we have at our disposal to make it easier and help in that decision making process, that's a massive win for us and for the individual. And then the second thing is, I think we can use it to help our partners and our employers make better decisions about their businesses, about their benefits offerings, right? So, one of the things we always do is we benchmark and we'd say, hey, here's where you are, but here's how this compares to everybody else within the ecosystem.
Yeah.
And so I think giving people some perspective on, hey, all right, well, I'm here, I want to get there. How do I do that? How do I make an impact in my benefits offering and how I run my business and how I go to market, et cetera? Those are some of the other ways that we're leveraging it for partners and employers.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned the partner element of it, Matt, because I mean, obviously, benefit analytics, like our partners have access to this wide pool of benchmarking data that they can really leverage. You know, just quickly going into that area, why, can you give us a little bit of a credibility statement from a WEX standpoint of why this WEX data is particularly valuable? And we're kind of teeing off like some of the data that we're going to share. Like, why is, what's
Sure.
our credibility in this area?
Yeah, I mean, our data set is massive, right? I mean, we've been doing this for a long time. And in particular, what's really fun is, it's not just about HSAs or FSAs or HRAs. It's all of it. Um, then think about the opportunity to fold Cobra information into that, and the opportunity to fold information about, from our Ben admin platforms into that. So our data set is big, and it's comprehensive. And so, when we think about the opportunity we have to put all of that together, that gets really, really exciting. For example, in the HSA space, it's something like 1 in 5 of all HSAs is on our platform, and we have years of history on how these folks have used their accounts, how they've contributed, how they've spent, how they invested. That when we think about consumer engagement, that's invaluable. And really is critical to what we look to do down the line.
Yeah, that's great. And I love that you just said HSAs, because let's jump into these trends, right? I think we've established the importance of it, and why I think we're uniquely positioned to do so. But let's get like where the rubber meets the road. Like, what are the things we're calling on? And one of them is around HSAs. So let's start there. What are we seeing in terms of employer activity when it comes to HSAs in particular, which is a common topic on this podcast?
Well, it's looking back to 2021, HSAs are back. During the pandemic and during that time, it was interesting, right? We saw trends in the market that had been almost universal truths start to reverse a little bit, but we saw something like 8% growth across the industry in terms of number of accounts, investments. Although the way the stock market has performed of late, maybe not that great, but last year, we saw participation in investments, both in terms of number of participants. I think our number of investors was up something like 40% last year, and dollars just absolutely skyrocketed in investment accounts. And so I'd say, folks are really starting to recognize the long-term savings value that HSAs offer, and the value of investing those dollars. Personally, I think within 3 years, we'll see investments, overtake cash in terms of where the dollars are. It's about 35% of the assets sitting in investments today. I think we'll be at over 50% here within 3 years if these trends hold. And again, we'll need a little help from the stock market there to get there, but really important. And I think when I think about employers and what they can do to better to support HSAs, I think there's a lot of opportunities, and this great resignation stuff has presented a ton of challenges, but I see HSAs potentially as a platform where employers can really differentiate themselves. And so think about your contribution strategy to your HSA. I think that's one area. One super interesting one. There's an article recently. I can't remember the gentleman's name, but it's a consultant, and he talked about how to combine 401ks and HSAs in such a way where you don't penalize somebody for contributing to their HSA, right? So if I put $1,000 in my HSA, maybe that's $1,000 I'm not able to put into my 401k. But from a matching strategy perspective, you can count HSA contributions as towards the overall contribution level and apply that to the match. And so, hey, you made a pre-tax contribution to one of these savings vehicles. That's going to result in you getting more 401k match from your employer. And so that's a cool concept that not enough people are thinking about. Like, how do you do this in such a way where it's a win for the employee? And I thought that was a really, really creative one. And honestly, I loved it. I think it's a way for us to think about how to differentiate high deductible health plans and HSAs from the other plans that are out there.
Yeah, I love that, Matt. And I think when we think about, we've spent so much time on this podcast this season talking about wellness and financial wellness.
Yeah.
When you how can you kind of frame up like why this is really important now? Like, why is it especially important for employers to make sure their employees are getting the most out of their health savings accounts today, especially with like inflation going on and great resignation, things like that? Is that kind of what we're talking about?
Yeah, it's really a great question, and why should an employer care? I think employee benefits are an integral part of wellness, financial wellness, and so what's more fundamental than making sure that if I have the need to go get medical care, that I've got the dollars to be able to cover it, right? And to me, that's sort of a basic thing, right? Nothing else matters if I don't have those basics covered, right? And medical care, I think, is one of those things that you'd say, you gotta make sure that that's taken care of. And there's good business behind it as well, right? I mean, the statistics around productivity impacts, because folks are worried about their financial situation at work, and the amount of time that's lost at work. I mean, not to make it cold-hearted and whatever, but that's a realistic concern for employers. And so, to me, there's that, and then the long-term value of these accounts, right? And so thinking about it as part of a long-term saving strategy for individuals, and again, that relationship between the 401k and the HSA, these can be part of that long-term saving story. If you, I don't know if you guys have used my HSA planner, shameless plug, but the last page has a really cool utility where you can mess around and say, hey, well, what if I put X amount into my HSA, and what would that result in over time? And little contributions, little progress adds up to a lot over time, and that's, I think, the real power of that tool. So to me, those are the reasons why employers really care, and again, I think they can be a platform to attract people. I think if you can say, hey, look, I'm going to fully fund your HSA, as opposed to some employers are paying for college tuition, right? I mean, like, this is $7,000 to for a plus for a family contribution to an HSA. That pales in comparison to what you might spend for something like that. So to me, I think the opportunities for how you can use these are really, there's just so much out there that can be done to get a little bit creative.
Well, I was just looking at a blog post too that our outstanding producer Danielle wrote a couple months ago. I was just looking at this like an hour ago, and there was a stat in there that said I think 43% of employers, or 43% of employees have been distracted at work because of their finances for at least like 3 hours over the course of a work week or something. I mean,
Absolutely.
that's an incredible number.
Absolutely. It's really cool too. We did some work with our data team around, hey, what's the tipping point at which an employer needs to make a contribution and it'll drive enrollment and participation? And the thing was, it was really cool because it was a lot less than you would think. I mean, I think an employer contribution of like $1,500 was like, after that, you started to see diminishing returns in terms of, participation in the account. And so again, back to that theme of like little contributions, little progress makes a big impact. I think that's one of the things I would also put out there. Like, it doesn't have to be, fully funding the account, right? I kind of got a little crazy on that one, but $1,500, $1,700, that's the kind of stuff that really makes an impact.
Yeah, finding that sweet spot, I think, is really important, because that's a question I'm sure a lot of us, how much, if I'm going to provide an HSA, how much do I need to contribute? And the things that we found about how much to provide them to get them to leverage and use that benefit so much more is great. It's a great trend to see there. Maybe I'll move to the next trend, which is really around lifestyle spending accounts, Matt, which, I mean, talk about trend, not a trend, but also trendy. We've seen so much activity around lifestyle savings accounts. We just did a webinar on it, and tons of questions, tons of interest. So I think first off, maybe we should talk about what are these accounts, and why do they so matter? Why do they matter so much to employers?
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about a platform for benefits innovation, right? I mean, I think lifestyle spending accounts really hit the mark there. And, it really has been used as a way for employers to offer, benefits and kind of non-traditional ways, right? I mean, we've seen wellness benefits like gym memberships, exercising, all kinds of stuff, and offered on a post-tax basis in many cases. And so, just again, creativity around these types of benefits has been really fun to see. And the beauty of it is, I think, you can do it, a lot of this, in a very low admin cost way. So debit cards can be a great option for that. I think that's gaining traction out there in the market. If that's possible, depending on the type of benefits you want to offer. But in the wake of the way working has changed, and different needs that have arisen out there. I mean, throughout the pandemic, I think mental health benefits have been something where that's just been an area of lots of scrutiny and lots of need. I think lifestyle accounts are a great opportunity to do more there. And so I feel like, what we see is employers saying, this is something that's important to me. This is something that, I'm embracing as the values of my organization, and something I care about. And so I'm going to put my money where my mouth is, and really, put some dollars behind it to help my employees out.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen, I think it was a 77% increase in employers offering an LSA just from Q1 2021 to Q1 2022. I mean, that's definitely been a really hot topic, and something we've spent quite a bit of time on in this podcast the last couple seasons. Matt, when you think about, what we're seeing in terms of how these LSAs are being designed, are there any specific trends that kind of stand out to you?
It's interesting. You're seeing, some of the contribution levels, can get pretty high. I mean, but I think on average around $750 is what we're seeing. And most of the plans are contributing those funds at the beginning of the plan year. So, again, I think if we think about the work world right now, and employees have become, always were, and have become even more, in demand and valuable assets to organizations, right? So to me, thinking about how you make this as employee friendly as possible, right? I mean, don't burden it with a lot of traditional benefit stuff, if you want to make it, if you want to achieve that goal. But I'd say most of them are allowing for funds to be, used at the start of the plan year. And then, when you see where the dollars are going, 60% of the expenses are being spent on physical wellness type stuff. So that's, I mentioned, gym memberships, exercise, things like that. Financial certainly is a big component of that. And then emotional well-being and other types of expenditures, it's about a quarter of the dollars. And so, those, and I don't think there's any surprises there, kind of given the trends that we've seen and heard about, societally and otherwise. But again, I think with the war for talent that's raging out there, I mean, LSA should be a platform that employers are thinking about. How am I going to hang on to people by, and I'd encourage employers to ask employees, like, what would be valuable to you? What would be most impactful to you as part of the plan design here? But again, I can't say enough about the opportunity that I see around lifestyle benefits in terms of attracting, retaining, and just, getting the best talent in the door. I think it can be a really powerful tool.
Yeah, 100% agree. And it's really fun to kind of see the growth there, and see employers get creative on how they provide some unique benefits, like an LSA. One of the things that's almost on top of everyone's mind, and really has become, brought to the attention of HR professionals, is of course mental health, which again, we've had a couple episodes just this season talking about mental health and the stigma and how do you help treat, and so on and so forth. And so what I would love to hear is, what are you seeing when it comes to, mental health? What are employers telling us that they're looking in terms to their benefits to help with that?
Yeah, and this is an area where, when we talk about telehealth, right? I mean, physical health, via telehealth is kind of one thing, but the explosion really of digital mental health, to me, is really awesome. I mean, the ability for someone to get access to a professional counselor from the privacy of their home, importantly, right, and to be able to have a face-to-face discussion with that person, to me is just tremendous. And you try to take a look at some of the, there's been a lot of things that have been really hard about the past couple of years, but that's what are some of the things that have been great? And I'd say that's something that's been great. The ability to seek care and do it digitally, to me, is really something that is, that I think the industry, the healthcare industry, really should be proud of. And I think a lot of employers, I think it was 28% had said they changed some of their wellness offerings to really focus on mental health. And I think, from your own experience, just the number of, apps that are out there that allow you to do these types of things. And certainly EAPs have always been a big, really important part of this. But, certainly mental health is, like I said, I think it's really something that, as a benefits industry, it's been a real success story.
There is so much, kind of diverse ground that we covered in this episode, Matt. I mean, we've talked about mental health and LSAs and HSAs, and I mean, this is kind of a broad question, I guess. But any other tips for our HR decision makers, employers, anyone else listening to this podcast you've kind of taken away from all of this data and information?
Yeah, as I kind of think back on what I've been talking about throughout this, I think it's this theme of creativity, kind of keeps coming back. I think we have a tendency sometimes to get a little bit stuck in, wow, this is what the industry's doing, or this is the way we've always done it, or whatever. And I'd encourage employers, consultants, brokers to just continue to think creatively about what are 401k and HSA match strategies, or what's a different design that we can use to attract people. We did some survey work and some consumer research in the wake of the Great Resignation, and I think some of the answers that we saw came back really surprised us. We went in with one set of assumptions, and the data told us something different. And so talk to your employees and understand what's important to them, because I think the biggest thing that we found in that work was connection to my employer was the number one thing to help drive, feeling connected to my employer, feeling that my work is connected to contributing to a bigger goal at the employer, were the things that were really behind a lot of this. And so I think talking to your employees, understanding what's important to them, and really trying to structure benefits around that will go a long way in terms of attracting and retaining folks. And in particular, you see that with younger folks in the workforce, right? I mean, that feeling, that need for connection, that need for, feeling I'm doing meaningful work, et cetera. And so I think being creative, talking to your employees, getting the data out of talking to your employees, and using that to really inform where you're going are the things that I would say.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Matt. This has been great. I love that we could take some of this data that we've had and really kind of translate it into some of these trends. I really appreciate your insight on some of that direction and your final thoughts there as well. I know it's really important for HR pros to really understand what's happening, what's moving, what are other employers are doing, how do they need to. I think one of the words that came out, we did a panel with some HR professionals, and it was all about choice, right? People looking for different types of choices and how to interact with their benefits. And I think that just echoes exactly everything you said. Matt, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. This is great. We love having you on. We truly appreciate it.
Always fun. I love getting on and talking with you guys about this stuff. It's always good to be able to take a step back and see the bigger picture. So it's really fun being with you guys.
Well, we love it. Anytime we have an episode, we're going to talk about how awesome data is. We know who to turn to. So thanks, Matt. We appreciate it. See you next time.
Thank you.
WEX is in the business of simplifying benefits for everyone. Now, although we certainly hope our podcast sparks some aha moments, like that was pretty cool, but of course we cannot provide legal, investment, or financial advice. And, well, therefore, nothing shared in this podcast should be interpreted as such. We encourage you to seek out appropriate professional advice regarding your plans. Hey, congratulations! You made it through our disclaimer. Thanks for listening.